It's been 2.5 years since I upgraded my Dolby Atmos setup from 2 high channels to 4. Well, technically 5 high channels. So today I'll be giving you my review and of course what I think is wrong or bad with Dolby Atmos. And in case you want to set up an Atmos system in your home, these are things you're going to want to know. So let's talk right after the jump. What's up, Techno fam? Chana D, your Techno Dad here. And you know, Joe from the Joe and Tell channel did bring up a good point that I made a video about upgrading from 2 high channels to 4 high channels for my Atmos setup, but I never actually made a review. So here we are 2.5 years later. Here is the review. Now, big shout out to Joe for reminding me about this because yeah, I did make a video about it, but it was more of a setup video installation. Also gave you some tips on what to do with your wires because you're going to have to like cable all this stuff up. And you're not going to know which speaker is which. Anyway, I'll leave a link to that video down in the description and with the card up top. Before we begin, I do want to give a big shout out to all my patrons on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for making it possible for me to continue making cool content like this. And if you want to become a patron, I will put a link down in the description for you guys to do so. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe up and hit the bell so you get notified when cool videos like this are released. And let's also not forget that this is the internet and I'm probably going to get a bunch of comments saying, hey, why are you just talking about it? Why didn't you just record it and let us hear the difference? Because YouTube only spits out a 2-channel stereo. So even if I were to record multi-channel and mix it multi-channel, you wouldn't be able to hear or experience what I'm hearing and experiencing in my room. So that's why. Okay, so let's leave the asinine comments and questions out of the comment section. Thank you. Okay, so after all this time, what is it that I can say about moving from 2 high channels to 4 high channels? It's all about movement, okay? And the one caveat, the big bad thing about Dolby Atmos is how is Dolby Atmos implemented in blank movie? You fill in the blank, right? That is the biggest problem, downside. Something is just not right with the Dolby Atmos implementation in movies. Basically, Dolby Atmos is not made the same for every movie. And that's the biggest problem. So you could spend all this money and all this time setting all this stuff up, and you're going to get a good experience when you get those good experiences. But will it be like awesome all the time? Chances are that's a big fat no, due to the way Atmos is implemented in said movie. So when you move from 2 high channels to 4 high channels in a movie like John Wick, there's the scene in the cemetery after the funeral. This is John Wick, the first one, obviously. And they're in the rain and they have umbrellas up. So what we're hearing in the Atmos channels, we're hearing the raindrops hitting the top of the umbrella. And if you look up, it's just speakers up there, but it feels like I have an umbrella and it's raining outside. It totally feels that way. It sounds exactly like that. When you have 2 high channels, it sounds exactly the same when you have 4 high channels. It might sound like a little bit more of that effect, that pop, 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 whatever that sound is. But the issue is there's no movement. So it's pretty much the same. Now, a stark contrast to that is the opening scene in Power Rangers, where you have a ship that flies over you from behind and goes in front and above. And you feel that movement. You hear the ship back here and come up front and fly like above you, whatever. That is what we're talking about. That is the kind of movement that shows and displays how awesome Atmos is. The John Wick scene, not so much. Like you wouldn't notice too much of a difference going from 2 channels to 4 channels in that scene. But going from 2 channels to 4 channels in that scene I was talking about with Power Rangers, huge difference. Now, if you didn't have the rear 2 channels up there, you would just hear something flying overhead. It would still have movement, but not the same kind of detailed movement. Now, if we go to something like the movie Gravity, which is, I think, on Atmos on Apple TV, so you can get it there as opposed to buying the Diamond Deluxe Edition Blu-ray, which I think I spent like $80 on a couple of years ago. I have a review of that movie. on the channel. It's pretty old. That one is really awesome because even in that first scene, like, you know, the astronauts are like spinning around, and so you're hearing voices coming out of the top right, the top left, the back right. Like, it's pretty gnarly. So when you close your eyes and watch something like that, like, it's just fantastic because you're just hearing, you don't, when you close your eyes, you don't even know what's happening on the screen. So you're just hearing, you know, somebody talk over here, then somebody talk over there, then somebody talk over here. It's awesome. It's awesome. So if you have that movie, try it out. And if you have 4 high channels, yeah, do that. It's pretty cool. So again, it's more realistic, it's more immersive, and it was awesome with 2 channels. It just opens up a whole new world when you've got 4 high channels. Now, another cool scene is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, where Tom Cruise and I think Simon Pegg are in a BMW and they're driving around and they're being chased by motorcycles. And there's this one part Tom Cruise hits one of the motorcycle guys with the car, and the motorcycle goes do-doom, 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 right? It like bounces, it's bouncing off the roof of the car. So you hear the bounce in the front, and then the top front here where like the, you know, the windshield meets the roof, and then again a second hit on the roof, which is, you know, engaging the rear high channels, and then boom, the trunk lid, and that's doing your rears or your side surrounds. So you actually hear that boom, 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 boom. Like, that was awesome. Like, that scene was great. So again, movement is the key here, and movement is what separates having 2 high channels with 4 high channels. But herein lies the one and only caveat, is that, well, how is Atmos implemented in the movie? Perfect example is Bumblebee. Now, I loved that intro scene because it took me back to my childhood. You know, it was like the cartoons brought to life, and it was awesome. It was like Transformers back in the 80s. It was so cool. So I was excited to, you know, hear what Atmos had to offer on this mix. And for me, I have, you know, 2 power amplifiers in my home theater setup. I have a 5-channel for my 5 ear level speakers, and I have a 5-channel for my 5 high channels. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, what's going on in the high channels? I just go turn off a power amplifier, and then nothing is on other than the high channels. So when I did that in the scene for Bumblebee, yeah, I was really disappointed because all I got was the music score. Not that the music score was bad, but there was all this action. There's planes flying overhead. There's, you know, pew, 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 all kinds of sound effects of the battle and all that. But nothing was coming from the high channels. Nothing. And even in like John Wick, when John like throws somebody through like glass, the glass shatters and it kind of comes at you, and that stuff, the shattering glasses, the flying glasses like broken around and flying around your head and stuff like that. That was cool. And, you know, on a DTSX movie, what was it, Lone Survivor, like those explosions happen, and then the debris starts like falling around you. You know, it matches up with what's happening on screen. But Bumblebee, like the Atmos in that movie, just it's completely and utterly underwhelming. It sucked. To, you know, lack of a better term, it just sucked. And, you know, what is that? Is that you know, was there a budgeting issue? Did they not want to spend the money on somebody to mix Atmos really well? Was it a deadline issue? Did they have the money, but they didn't have time for somebody to go in and mix like really cool effects in Atmos, you know, for the entire film? I don't know. Or was just was Sony Pictures just being lazy? Who knows? I don't know. But that is the big caveat. How is Atmos being implemented into the movie? Because, I mean, all these scenes are cool, but you gotta, unless the whole movie's in space like Gravity, like you're getting maybe like 2 to 3 seconds, you know, and maybe there's 5 or 6, maybe 10 scenes, let's say. So you're getting like a half a minute of really cool Atmos, and you have to watch like an entire movie to get there. So these are the kinds of things that I feel are not represented as much. I know a lot of people do talk about, you know, what are the best films. For the most part, you kind of have to be realistic. in theory, the best films to watch Atmos would probably be like a superhero movie where there's a lot of action, people flying around you, people flying above you, space movie, you know, when they're shooting a lot of stuff in space and there's ships going here and there and all this other stuff going around you. That's one of the things. It's like, well, I could get a movie like that, and then you pay for it or you rent it or whatever, and you're like, okay, well, that was kind of lame. So it's pretty tough, right? You've got the fact that like they don't mix it well, or it's better on this, it's better on that movie than this movie. Basically, all Atmos is not created equally, and that's one of the big problems, I think, about it. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, okay, well, Techno Dad, well, what should I do? Like, what are the best ways to show off my Atmos system or to just experience Atmos? And that's easy. That's a Dolby Atmos demo disc. Now, the hard part about those is that those are pretty hard to find. I mean, you can go on eBay, and I made a whole video on eBay or about eBay and how I got burned buying a Dolby Atmos demo disc because I wanted that new Dolby Vision disc, and I kept getting all these burned copies when they said it was original, but it was all shrink wrapped and it had like a printed out label on the disc, and like they went to great lengths to make a fake and pawned it off as it was real. So definitely be careful. I know the 2018 Dolby Atmos demo disc has a great little demo where it has Atmos on and off. And that is the best part, I think, is when you can actually hear what's going on with the high channels and then they just turn it off. And then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And then they turn them on again. And it's just like, oh, it's amazing. Like the difference when you do that is amazing. Even the Oro 3D demo disc has a great example of that. It's like being out in like a big town square, because you have like reflections that are coming off of buildings and stuff like that, even above you, right? That all just kind of makes sense in the space that you're in. And same thing, you know, like you just hear people at the restaurants and out in the patio, like doing stuff, and all of a sudden they turn on the Atmos and then you can hear it. It just kind of feels more realistic, more enveloping, more immersive. And then they turn off the bed layer or the, 5 ear level speakers, and you're like, oh, wow, all that's going on up there. Those things are the best way to demo the system. And unfortunately, it's really hard to find all these things. I've, gotten a whole bunch of them throughout the years, so I'm lucky. But then again, I go to the trade shows, which obviously we didn't have any last year. And that's where usually I get them. Sometimes I'll get them off of eBay if I can find one that's an actual real one. But yeah, those are few and far between. And of course, for Oro 3D, you will need an AV receiver that supports Oro 3D, like a Denon or Marantz. There are a few others, but those are the two most popular ones. And I think on the Denon side, you need like the 4400 and up. So the 4400, 4500, 4700, and the higher ones up on there. I think the 4300 does support Oro 3D, but you have to pay for the upgrade for that. So I don't know. If you have a Denon or Marantz, definitely check them out. All right, so let's wrap it up. Was it worth it going from 2 high channels to 4 high channels? And for me, that is a big fat yes. But the caveat is, how is Atmos mixed in these movies? Sometimes you'll get an Atmos soundtrack that's weak. Sometimes it's going to be all right. Sometimes it's going to be good. And other times it's going to be effing amazing. The problem is we just won't know until we try that disc or movie or content, whatever it happens to be. So that's the big caveat. You could spend all this time and money and it sucks. Of course, the best way to show off your system is to get a demo disc, which are few and far between. Like I said before, all Atmos is not created equal, and it's only getting bigger, right? We got these new AVRs that'll do 3 high channels on either side, so 6. You got DTS:X Pro, where you can get 30 speakers going on. So it's crazy. So everything is kind of moving forward. And yeah, I'm sure you're probably wondering, well, is it worth it? I think if you wanted to have 6 high channels, you probably want to have like 2 rows of seating, a big room. And of course, you're starting to get into AV receivers that cost, well over $3,000 for that. And Denon came in 2019 with the 3600H that has 11 channel processing and power for 9 channels. You can definitely get 4 channel Atmos AV receiver for around $1,000, a little bit more, a little bit less when it's on sale. So that's definitely a good thing. Now, if you guys have any questions about this or anything else, let me know down in the comments below or hit me up on social or email, whichever you like to use. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. If you'd like to, go ahead, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel using the button in the middle of your screen. Once again, my name is Chana D. I'm your Techno Dad, and I'll see you next time.